Welcome to Australian Immigration News, where we cover what's moving and shaking in the world of migration down under. This channel is brought to you by Australian Immigration Law Services here in Sydney, and I'm Karl Konrad, the company's founder. First up, we have some good news to share. Those who watched last week's news edition will know that we ran a story about Ahmed's experiences with Victoria University on how they cancelled his COE after his student visa was refused after completing his first semester online and offshore. Victoria University is now offering a refund of his first semester fees and asked Ahmed to complete a refund application form. Some good news at least for Ahmed, but overall the experience has been a disappointment for him. Nick is still waiting for Torrens University to decide on his next COE. We'll keep you posted on how things progress. For those of you who have been waiting patiently for the next 189 invitation rounds, the floodgates were opened on Thursday. In fact, we were caught by surprise by the sheer numbers, and we were kept busy all day contacting successful EOI clients. And for a change, there was a high number of invitations for onshore applicants. Here is just a snippet of examples of our clients who received the 189 invitations, the occupations and the points required. You can hit the pause button if you are interested. We also had a number of New South Wales 190 invitations, such as civil engineer at 95 points and ICT support engineer at 100 points. And you should know that New South Wales is offering invitations at a lower pass mark than advertised. So why so many invitations compared to the last few invitation rounds? Well, my theory is that the department has been waiting to see how many of the large offshore invitations that were handed out actually turned into lodged applications. Remember, invitees have just 60 days to apply. It would seem that many of those offshore may now be quite happy to remain there.
Yes, we do.
Or perhaps they did not keep their documents up to date, such as English and skill assessment, or got married and forgot to update their EOIs. However, you will find that those who are onshore, who have sacrificed so much to be here in the first place, are super keen and ready to lodge their applications. Remember, those who have studied here and now working, or those who have come on sponsored working visas, have already demonstrated their willingness to call Australia their home. From our perspective, this week has been very satisfying to give so many the good news they have long been waiting for.
We had another good week.
Now all we need to do is get the government to grant all of those old 489, 887, 491 and 494 applications they have been holding on to. Those who have already been contributing so much to regional parts of Australia. And while I'm on this topic, there is another way the government can assist their burden of waiting.
Really, mister?
Let those 489, 491 and 494 applicants use the time spent on bridging visas in regional areas to meet the mandatory 2 and 3 years of holding their visas before they can apply for their permanent residency. It is grossly unfair on them to delay their processing for years, then expect them still to further live in regional areas for more years before they can apply for their PR. And remember, even when they lodge their PR applications, they are not free. They still have to wait until their PR is granted or their visas expire before they are allowed to live anywhere they choose. For example, currently a 489 visa applicant living and working in regional Australia who has been waiting 3 years for their visas to be granted needs to then wait another 2 years after it's granted to be able to apply for their 887 PR visa.
That's unfair.
It's incredibly unfair.
Then it is likely, at current processing times, to wait a further 2 years or more before their 887 PR visa is granted. This is at least 7 years of being forced to live and work in regional Australia. The Minister can easily make these minor fare adjustments to look after those who have already assisted regional Australia. However, instead of doing just that, helping those poor people who have been waiting years already for their visas, the Home Affairs Minister Claire O'Neill was busy making a speech at the National Press Club luncheon about the current visa system and how out of date it is.
It's complex, it's bureaucratic, it lacks strategy, it's expensive and glacially slow. It's not serving the needs of our country, of business or of migrants.
Of course, the Minister could not resist repeating her favourite lines about how this government had inherited 1 million visas.
When we came to government, there were almost 1 million unprocessed visas just sitting there in the system in the middle of the biggest labour shortage we have experienced since the Second World War.
However, what she said next made me choke on my tea biscuit.
Due to sheer inertia, the system had defaulted into bringing in very high numbers of temporary, lower skilled workers who churned through the labour market.
What on earth is the minister talking about? And more importantly, who is she talking about? There is no visa class that allows mass numbers of temporary lower skilled workers into this country. Yes, we have a few thousand overseas farm workers roaming the countryside through the PALMS program, but they cannot be who she is aiming at. It appears to be an insult directed at 482 visa holders and former international students on 485 visas. But hold on just a minute. These people are not lower skilled temporary workers. The students have predominantly graduated from their trade qualification and degrees and moved into the 485 visa program and contributed much to this society already. Not to mention, of course, the huge economic stimulus they brought into this country in the first place. And the 482 visa workers who have flown in must all have qualifications in their occupations and at least 2 years experience before they can even qualify for a visa grant. But it gets worse. Have a listen to this.
No, here she comes.
And as a result, Australia today has a problem we have always studiously avoided, and that is a large underclass of undocumented migrant workers who are living in our country today and extremely vulnerable to exploitation.
So how exactly do these so-called lower skilled temporary workers turn into the undocumented underclass? I think the minister is a little confused.
Of course I am. I always am.
The majority of those who have actually stayed here unlawfully seem to have come in on visitor visas. The hardworking temporary skilled visa workers and former international students, in my experience, do not turn into an underclass of undocumented workers. The idea of labeling them as such is an insult to the skills and experience they bring into this country and the valuable contribution they make. The minister should remember, although I understand it was a little bit before her time, the hugely successful skilled migration program brought in by the Liberal government after the predominance of the family migration priorities of the previous Labor Party. The skilled migration program has brought a huge benefit to this country over the last 2 decades, and I can assure you I don't vote Liberal, but I do give credit to where it's due. Yes, the Liberals fumbled the ball on migration in the last few years, but let's be honest, it has been a tough time, and not many could have predicted all of the consequences to all of the decisions. With all due respect, Minister, to call our temporary resident working scheme as responsible for a new underclass is right over the top. It's time for more action on helping people rather than speeches like this. And if you missed that speech, we'll leave a link in the description below and to the transcript on the government's website. And while we're speaking of action, we are still waiting to hear about the extension of the Graduate 485 visas the minister told us about back in August. No word on this at all, despite the fact that they said they would make an announcement by the end of October. Well, yes, I did think of raising this earlier, but I thought I would be polite, yes, me, by giving them more time to do something. I'm sorry, but that minister's speech really set me off this week, so time's up. Why the silence and inaction on that promise? Do them all a favour and at least make it a Christmas present for them. There has been talk in the media to bring back the 1-year Graduate Diploma in Teaching qualifications again. In 2014, the state switched to a 2-year Masters of Education degree requirement if people did not complete a Bachelor of Education. There is only one state that still offers the Graduate Diploma to become a teacher, that is Victoria, and only for the early childhood teachers. Actually, many of my clients have studied these 1-year Graduate Diploma courses and gone on to gain their permanent residency very quickly, since this occupation is in super high demand. Some universities even offer this course online for our international visitors if they have permission to study and do not hold student visas, such as those who hold the 485 visas. And talk is still floating around out there regarding the increase to the temporary skilled migration income threshold, known as the TSMIT. Business groups are saying that 70,000 would be the optimum level compared to the 90,000 figure floated by the union movement during the Skills and Jobs Summit. We hope the government is keeping in mind that it is all well and good to be talking about the average salaries in Melbourne, Brisbane and Sydney. There are those living in regional centres, remember those areas you want to populate, that won't find minimum salaries at $70,000 in order to meet the requirements for the 191 visa. If you raise it to $70,000 even, this will drive the regional workers in outer regional areas on the 491 and 494 visas into the regional cities, looking for more income, maybe even a second job to meet the minimum TSMIT. For those who are not aware that the 191 visa pathway is tied to the TSMIT requirements. And now it's time for a couple of our readers' comments. Nanas asks a fairly regular question, so it's time to answer it. How long will the case officers take a break for the Christmas and New Year's? I mean, how long will the visa processing stop and when will they start again? Well, Nanas, you will be pleased to hear that DOA does not close for Christmas or the New Year, but of course, like all of us, they close for public holidays. Case officers will still be sending out request letters, grant visas, and refuse them over the holiday period. And another one from Priyanka. Hi Karl, can I move to another state after being granted the 190 visa? Priyanka, you will notice on your visa grant letter there are no conditions attached. This means that you are free to live and work in any part of Australia. And yes, people ask me, what about my commitment to the sponsoring state? Well, that's between you and the sponsor, but it has nothing to do with the immigration department or your visa requirement. Well, that's all for another fascinating week in the world of Australian immigration. People will be talking about this massive 189 visa invitation round for some time, and let's hope it continues at the same rate. And if you haven't got an EOI for the 189 visa, get onto that straight away. And if you have, make sure your documents are up to date, for as I can see from the comments section, many people have been caught out. If you need help, we are always here. And as always, take care out there, and I'll see you next time. So bye for now.